When I googled, do potatoes have gender? Don't ask. The only thing adorning the first page was the recent controversy regarding Mr. Potato Head's identity erasure. In 2021, Hasbro announced they would be dropping the Mr. part of the toy's branding and just calling the collective Potato Head. And boy, it had people foaming at the mouth.
Did you ask the couple their genders, or are you assuming it? Some people here find that kind of thing to be very offensive.
Hasbro just lost another customer. I will never buy Hasbro again.
How about a Miss Potato Head for all those single dudes? Hasbro removes offensive and patriarchal bro to rebrand as stunning and brave and genderless has been. Why does Mr. Potato Head have 13 pieces, but Mrs. Potato Head only has 12? I'm very agitated by this.
You'd think with these reactions that Hasbro totally eradicated the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head characters altogether, but no. Hasbro simply combined the genders and created a super starch, all-encompassing brand. Cute, I guess, if you subscribe to the idea of potatoes having gender to begin with.
Do I look?
And like, biologically speaking, potatoes are hermaphroditic, meaning they'd have both female and male productive parts, and reproduce asexually through self-pollination. So all this hoopla regarding anthropomorphic fictional talking potatoes is really for naught, when you consider real-life potatoes have an absence of gender. But what would the children think if you were to place male and female parts into the same package, so children could just carelessly place them onto the nebulous, genderless void? Gender expression in this economy?
Think again!
This random exploration happened to coincide with a video I saw by fellow YouTuber Too Many Tapes, where host Corey reviewed the Mr. Potato Head show. As a side tangent, Too Many Tapes is a wonderfully underrated channel with some dry humor, pathos, and just a really chill, relaxed vibe that I often fall asleep to, but don't take that as an insult, it just goes to show how mellow the content is over there. Based on Corey's description, the show appears as a madcap series of unrelated events that culminated in a Deus Ex Machina type space battle, where everyone got to go home at the end with zero consequences on either side of the aisle. But he also mentions that this was the finale of the show, meaning there was a whole season's worth of events leading to this moment. Somehow, the random assortment of plots had purpose, had a level of thought behind it to explain itself. So, I sat down and watched it, all of it, and what I saw was weird. It was weird.
Mr. Potato Head! Mr. Potato Head! He makes a show with his kitchen crew, the TV guy, tell him what to do.
Only 13 episodes long, and considered lost media until 2018, the Mr. Potato Head show is just as zany, madcap, and slapdash as Corey's video implied. When viewed in a vacuum, the finale is definitely its own thing, and can be watched without the aid of the previous 11 episodes. However, the experience of the finale is enhanced when the episodes are viewed alongside it, and after watching the show, you can see why it didn't exactly take off.
But not for the reasons you might think.
Okay, au revoir! Don't contract anything weird and foreign!
You what?!
What lies before us is an absurd, cynical, disjointed, yet silly take on the Mr. Potato Head brand, but more on that when we come back from this break.
Mars sure is red!
Hey, don't talk in that funny puppet voice, okay? I hate that.
Okay, Commander!
I mean it. I'm not playing with you.
Puppets? Can't believe we've sunk this low.
Come on, to the space rocket.
Oh yeah, to the space rocket!
Let us first dive into the history of Mr. Potato Head and see how we got to the subject of today's video. Mr. Potato Head, as the name implies, is a toy consisting of a potato-shaped body with several holes punched in it to attach various body parts, which primarily make up the character's face, arms, and feet. Created by George Lerner, the original release required the buyer to purchase an actual potato.
Such fun to do, and so easy, like this.
For almost a decade, and several complaints from parents to Hasbro regarding rotting vegetables, the toy was changed to include a plastic molded body. There's also something in there regarding updated government safety regulations, but the idea of Karen's and the Potato Head brand beefing early in its history is pretty fucking funny. The Mr. was joined by a Mrs., and soon other accessories such as a car and a boat happened. Among other characters were Oscar the Orange and Pete the Pepper, two characters that did not transfer over to the TV show, but will definitely burrow themselves into my nightmares. Several editions of the toy have been released, and all can be affixed to the base potato. Mr. Potato Head also had a Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade balloon at one point, so that's how you know you've truly made a pop culture indent. The world of the Potato Head also goes a lot deeper than I had originally anticipated. Not only do you have the Mr. and Mrs., but you also have Pete, Oscar, Katie the Carrot, Kooky the Cucumber, several picnic pals, goddamn Dunky the Donut, a tie-in with Duncan. And wait, you've got locations to fill out the merch. I mean, lore. You've got farm, railroad, parade, moon, all the basics. Despite boasting a decently extensive cast that has since fallen to the wayside, the Potato Head brand does not have the staying power of something like Barbie. Actually, Barbie is a pretty decent comparison. Both feature a cast of supporting characters, use accessories to create an identity that is similar to, yet an extension of, the original persona, and have faced backlash due to broadening the brand's long-established status quo. Potato Head is everything, yet nothing, kind of changing its identity based on whatever you want to put on it. In this way, it's a toy that's great for teaching kids body parts and matching, but loses its appeal because there's not really a story attached. From my childhood days, I don't really remember there ever being a story with the Potato Heads, unless you count that one time that he had to corral a grumpy rain cloud back to Veggie Valley so his children wouldn't die. But other than that, there are really no villains, no adversaries, or even really a conflict within the world of the Potato Heads. So, what would a show based on this property even look like?
Never swallow a guppy.
Avoid toxic waste like the plague.
Don't eat what comes out of a puppy. And don't kiss an elephant's leg. La 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 la. Oh, we gotta find something that giant 2-year-olds like, or our preschool show is gonna munch!
The Mr. Potato Head show follows the escapades of, who else? Mr. Potato Head, as he and his kitchen crew attempt to produce a TV show for children. Advised by the TV guys, who are corporate shills looking for their next big hit regardless of artistic intent, PH is often misguided and manipulative.
I tell you, it's amazing how much totally unearned power us celebrities have.
The in-universe TV show, which I don't think we ever really hear the name of, covers a different genre every week, as the TV guys never have consistent feedback on what exactly is needed to have a successful show.
You can't end a Western like that. It has to end with a shootout.
Oh, but I thought you said that we couldn't do
Look, all I want is a violent shootout with no violence or shooting. Is that too much to ask, huh?
In Residence 2 are PH's sidekick Baloney, his on-again, off-again girlfriend Queenie, the oddball potato bug, Canny, a dog made of discarded tin cans, Dr. Fruitcake, a mad scientist, and his creation, the Ham Monster. Less prominent are Mr. Giblets, a pile of giblets, Mr. Happy Whip, and Miss Licorice Lips. For a while, the show was considered lost media, only surviving in part due to the release of a VHS containing the final 2 episodes of the show. Clips of the show's greatest hits, literally, songs, and a behind-the-scenes featurette. Someone must have really liked the show to throw this thing together, but the care and effort put into the show, only for it to barely make a dent, is admirable yet disappointing. My favorite is the writer casting himself as the writer and then making it seem like he's working for pennies in a cramped room where he really has no creative freedom to speak of. It's so silly that it must be fiction. Oh. The show's master tapes were discovered and subsequently loaded onto video sharing sites. The master tapes exist in better condition than the show's advertisements recorded on VHS, so these really are a treasure, as niche as they are. Stylistically, the show employs a mixed media style that is just as innovative as it is homegrown, and I mean that in the least condescending way possible. We get examples of late 90s flash animation with the scene transitions, early TV-grade CGI with Miss Licorice Lips, amazingly awful green screening that doesn't reach the ends of the frame, and even some guerrilla-style filmmaking when they go out on location. Imagine being these extras and getting told to fawn over a potato for a paycheck. But that's showbiz.
The show was written and co-created by Doug Langdale, who was perhaps best known for his collaborations on Disney shows Dave the Barbarian, which employs a similar wacky non-sequitur style of humor, and The Weekenders. His style is all over the Mr. Potato Head show, which we'll break down in the episode recap. The voice talent is rounded out by Kevin Carlson as PH and an alien, Deborah Wilson as Queenie and Miss Licorice Lips, Greg Ballora as Baloney, Julianne Buechner as Potato Bug and Betty the Kitchen Fairy, Mark Brian Wilson as the Ham Monster, and James Murray as Dr. Fruitcake, Mr. Giblets, Johnny Rotten Apple, an alien, Blostergath the Destroyer, and Canny the dog. The human cast consisted of Brian Jacobs as Aaron and Lisa Kaplan as Nora, the TV guys.
The characters were designed by the Chiodo brothers, who also designed the characters for Killer Clowns from Outer Space. The grotesqueness from that film carries over here, as the designs of Dr. Fruitcake, the Ham Monster, and Mr. Giblets often have this level of grit to them that almost falls out of line with the smoother feel of the other characters. But they are well made and expressive, lending themselves to the surreal humor the world drapes itself in. That surreality starts with humans interacting with a sentient potato, but ends with a kitchen fairy opening an interdimensional void, unleashing upon the world Blostergath the Destroyer, who ultimately defeats the aliens who, upon orders from their leader, a deceased houseplant, intend to destroy the Earth and threaten our heroes. But there is order to this seeming disorder, and there's no better place to start than at the beginning.
Well, I've done it. I've written the greatest script in the history of TV.
Well, let me see.
Well, here.
Scene one, fading on. I have gazed into the nameless horror of the void. The horror. The horror.
So you don't like it?
Bully Boy is on his way!
In the first episode, we are introduced to everybody's shtick. PH is the lead hero, Baloney is his sidekick, Queenie is the diva, Potato Bug is the foolish underling, and Mr. Whip, explodes a lot. PH is the leader of this motley crew and the liaison between them and the TV guys. The TV guys do not have a strong sense of direction for what PH's show needs to be about, so elicit advice that is always contradictory.
Fact is, we got around to reading the script, and
It was good, but in that really kind of awful way.
Right, good. In the awful way where we hated it.
PH advises Baloney on an assignment, but Baloney gets abducted by aliens and apparently is well liked by them. No one believes him, yet he produces proof of their visit.
You gotta believe me about the aliens, PH. They've implanted some sort of diabolical alien device inside of me.
It's a fork.
It's a fork!
Hey, but the aliens make themselves known at the end of the episode. There's also this runner of Dr. Fruitcake creating the Ham Monster at the insistence of PH, who then runs amok, only to be exploded by Baloney. During the chase scene, chaos exists in every frame. It's impressive on a technical level, and there's a few fleeting moments of visible puppeteers. This will only get worse. But for a pilot episode, it gets the point across. This is a show where anything can happen, and it does. In episode 2, Queenie is struggling with fitting into her costume for their superhero show, while the TV guys are demanding the show teach kids something. Anything. Baloney actually presents a decent solution, and it all pokes fun at how educational shows sometimes shoehorn their messages into the program.
I know how to make the show educational. We do it exactly the same as before. But we stick in a bunch of irrelevant facts, like the list of noble gases and the capital of North Dakota, huh?
Who's smarter than the average sandwich filler?
Queenie vows to go on a diet, but she relapses not once, but twice. After warming up 6,000-year-old food in the microwave, she accidentally unleashes Blostragathe the Destroyer, who is hellbent on the destruction of the entire world.
Trapped in a corn kernel, I, Blostragathe the Destroyer, am free to fulfill my destiny by destroying the earth and every living thing upon it.
Thinking she's crying wolf, PH and Baloney don't want to help her, but Betty, the kitchen fairy, appears to deliver a be-yourself message that's a lot harsher than I anticipated.
I'm here to tell you to knock off this diet junk, you spongy-nosed maltworm. So what if you're not some kind of freaky stick insect fashion model? Quit making yourself miserable and eat something, for crying out French.
So you're saying I should just be myself?
Bingo! I thought your little 2-volt brain would never figure it out. Okay, I'm going to start time up again, so Doc!
PH calls upon the Junior Spud Squad to distract Blostragathe the Destroyer, and they are able to trap him in the microwave again. This episode introduces a tag scene in which PH answers fan mail, usually written by small children.
Nornine Logarithm of Anytown, USA writes with this. Dear Mr. Potato Head, I am 5 and my house is green. Asparaguses are also green, but pigs are not.
He goes off on a man yells at cloud style rant.
Well, Nornine, you didn't really ask any questions, which means there's nothing for me to answer. So, I'd like to go off on a completely unrelated tangent.
This is pretty funny and gives the show a variety flavor, showing we don't necessarily need a satisfying button to close out the episodes. Subverting expectations and rejecting the moral is enough. Speaking of, in episode 3, the TV guys scrap PH's opera idea for being too highbrow and ask the kitchen crew to create a preschool show.
Opera's a little, highbrow. And we're thinking we want a preschool show. Something for 2-year-olds.
Dr. Fruitcake has rebuilt the ham monster and estimates that he has the competency of a 2-year-old, so PH and Baloney decide he's the best test subject to try their new material on. Right. Meanwhile, Queenie learns that she's a descendant of Queen Yam-ternity, which is a fine potato pun, but like, Yamaziz was right there. So she ropes Potato Bug into the fray and starts acting like a high and mighty jerk to everyone who refused to accept her new status. There's a pretty good runner of words that make PH uncomfortable.
Please don't say bosom. Please don't say evacuate. Makes me uncomfortable.
And how Dr. Fruitcake probably unethically sourced the parts for Hammy. What makes this episode more fun than the previous two is the absolutely savage view the writers have for preschool entertainment of the time. PH and Baloney sing songs that have zero substance and are abstractly sensory friendly. They even get a dig at Barney the dinosaur.
Now what would entertain a giant ham monster with the brain of a 2-year-old?
A giant ham monster with the brain of a big purple dinosaur?
From the perspective of these writers, preschool shows kind of exist to teach these morals that are kind of obvious, a little banal, and this is only the start of this transgressive way of teaching morals. We'll get back to it. The puppeteering here also starts to get a little sloppy. A lot of times where the white-gloved arms of the performers reaching into the puppets can be seen in the frame, there are also some more egregious examples, such as here when Potato Bug's entire lack of a lower body is seen. So I can chalk this up to bad camera work as well as flaws in the puppets' designs. I really don't want to talk about episode 4, which is about spies and secret agents. Plots I don't really find interesting, but there are a few things that are important to note for the sake of the show's continuity. PH's nemesis Donkey Waddlefoot is introduced, and seemingly more popular and agreeable host of a similar, more well-funded program.
You did it, Captain Donkey Waddlefoot. You destroyed the renegade nuclear sub.
Once again, high explosives have made the bottom of the ocean safe for democracy.
It's true, and yet I can't help but feel.
When PH goes to tell the TV guys, they are eating French fries. Holy shit. Baloney and Queenie have this funny exchange.
Queenie, it's just that I've been taking this seminar and being more open with my feelings and stuff. It's called Being More Open with Your Feelings and Stuff.
That is the most obnoxious thing ever to come out of your mouth that didn't have chunks in it.
I guess PH's descent into paranoia is entertaining. His increasingly shrinking pupils is pretty great. But otherwise, this one is just kind of boring. Also, the ending is just a pretty big ass pull, all things considered.
Until we saw the show, you were the only one that knew the ending. So the only way that Donkey Waddlefoot could have gotten it was from you. Oh.
Well, that must mean I'm the spy.
Thankfully, the rest of the episodes are pretty notable for one thing or another. In episode 5, we have a cold open implying PH is plotting world domination.
How do you answer the rumors that you have a secret plan to rule the world?
How did you know that? Press conference is over.
Cool. After screening their new science show, the TV guys ask them to delve into science fiction, offering PH this small cup of money as compensation, which launches into this amusing musical number.
Think of the things I could buy with that cash. A monkey that sings or a sports car to crash. 1,000 bedpans of solid gold. A politician who'll do as he's told. Just think of the things I could buy.
His face here is so fucking great. This devolves into PH's numerous attempts to stay cheap and hoard all of the cash for himself. Keeping the show's budget down is one thing, but turning their soundstage into a storage facility for nuclear waste is quite another.
A little deadly poison never hurt nobody.
PH suggests they film their show on the countertop using puppets and made from chewing gum, but then resorts to further cost-cutting measures too.
We don't have a camera.
No sweat, baby. We're gonna do it by drawing directly on this old film I found in the trash.
Great.
Betty the Kitchen Fairy returns and knocks some sense into PH, just in time for him to sacrifice his money to vanquish a mid-90s CGI foe back into Baloney's magical top hat. Don't ask. So I think the lesson here is that cost-cutting measures are bad when only one person is benefiting from the residual money saving, but at least you get to make funny videos with your friends? I'm not sure. They all end up in a dumpster anyway. In episode 6, to steer PH away from a boring panel discussion show, the TV guys suggest he produce a reality TV show called The Real Kitchen. PH follows his friends around with a camera, but has trouble with them being so civil to one another.
That's a pretty leash.
Thanks. You are nice.
Thanks.
PH decides he needs to start manufacturing moments in order to make his show more interesting. He uses the talking head confessionals, edits them, and screams them for everyone, causing chaos throughout the household.
You are nice.
I heard what Fruitcake said Johnny said you said to Giblets about me after I told Giblets what Fruitcake said about Johnny. And for your information, I don't put ketchup on my scrambled eggs, and anyone who says I do can go choke on a donut.
Thanks.
Feeling down, PH cheers himself up by dancing the Fluffy Pookie Poo dance.
Fluffy Pookie Poo, Fluffy Pookie Poo, Fluffy Pookie Poo, Fluffy Pookie Poo.
To clear his conscience, PH shows them Baloney's unedited confessional, which is extremely complimentary to everyone. PH agrees to scrap The Real Kitchen and opts instead to submit a Fluffy Pookie Poo performance instead, but it ends up being so embarrassingly popular he temporarily relocates to South America to escape the hype. The show is, unfortunately, not without its more cliché moments. Episode 7 features a typical miscommunication plot. Queenie is overheard talking to Donkey Waddlefoot on the phone, offering to buy her new snow globe collection, but PH believes she's going to jump ship to his show. PH lays it on real thick, but Queenie is onto him. Queenie suggests they should do a variety show to give her a chance to sing, so everyone pitches ideas to PH as well. Dr. Fruitcake speaks for Hammy, the ham monster, even though by now we've seen he's perfectly capable of speaking for himself. One of the more subtle plotlines on this show is the evolution of the ham monster. Going from utter terror to destroyed to reborn to a docile creature learning about this insane cacophony of personalities he's forced to contend with. I wasn't expecting that upon starting the show. Queenie sings this absolute banger about the bathroom.
The bathroom is nice and quiet in the bathroom.
The green screen is a tad rough on her headpiece. Great. But due to PH's overbearing flattery, she misinterprets his intentions as affection and intent to marry her. Queenie responds to this heteronormativity correctly.
You may kiss the Yam.
Upon watching Queenie fork over her snow globes, conveniently just out of sight, PH blatantly gaslights baloney.
Last week you said that I was your best performer.
Man, it's like you expect me to keep track of every single lie I tell?
We also never see Donkey Waddlefoot, but we discover that one of his hands is a literal sock puppet. The episode ends with the two just saying what's bothering them. Ham Monster is able to do his river dance, and the entire studio falls apart. In episode 8, we are greeted to a cheesy western scene that confuses the TV guys.
You can't put a gunfight in a kid's show.
It has to be nonviolent and socially redeeming.
Their entire critique here is pretty good. Meanwhile, Baloney has gotten a mojo tool, which is basically a multi-tool but dialed up to 100. Taking the critiques, PH uses love and affection to defeat his adversary in the western episode.
I'll give you what you need, red-eyed Johnny. Warmth and affection.
But this isn't good enough, and they give him more confusing notes.
PH, you can't end a western like that. It has to end with a shootout.
Bang, bang, bang.
Oh, but I thought you said that we couldn't do
Look, all I want is a violent shootout with no violence or shooting. Is that too much to ask, huh?
The TV guys hire Bully Boy to uphold entertainment with content that is socially redeeming, so everyone gets to pitch their own ideas to him. Bully Boy threatens to cancel the show if they don't come up with a concept that pleases him, and he is so unrelenting in his pickiness.
La 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 la.
Bunny Rabbit make bad story.
Bully Boy crush you into sticky paste.
PH writes something so foul he causes both Queenie and Potato Bug to fall to the floor, and this is enough to get Bully Boy to run away. And they lampshade the ending.
I just hope he doesn't end it with one of those stupid bits where everyone laughs and then the picture freezes.
Yeah, that would munch, huh?
Yeah.
Bully Boy is played by Lee Ehrenberg, who would later go on to act in ABC's Once Upon a Time and the Pirates of the Caribbean films. He is laser focused here and quite intimidating. I enjoy his interactions with Potato Bug the most. So hilariously aggressive. Speaking of aggressive, it's time to take another break, and when we return, we'll finish recapping the series. See ya there.
In episode 9, PH is off to a talking potato convention and leaves Potato Bug in charge of watering his houseplant. In literal hours, Potato Bug feeds it, only for the plant to die and manifest itself as a ghost. Meanwhile, they decide to put on a Sherlock Holmes-inspired show while Potato Bug tries to dispose of the body.
Oh, egad, I'm undone.
My plant! You killed it!
I think it was a cookie Saint-Jacques Nouvelle.
Oh, this plant was like a son to me. Except it didn't move or talk and would never grow up to be a doctor.
The ghost shows itself and PH confronts Potato Bug, who declares herself the genesis for multiple historical catastrophes.
Everything's my fault. The dead plant, the depletion of the ozone layer, World War II. It's all my fault, because I'm so stupid.
She asks Dr. Fruitcake to make her smarter, who gives her an IQ of over 400.
432.644919, approximately.
Geez, sorry. At first, it's kind of fun, but then she gets nasty.
Your game grows tedious. I have, therefore, prepared a list of the answer to every question you will ask me for the next 6 months. Kindly refer to it, and do not trouble me with your childish queries.
She may be smarter than us, but that's no reason to be downright nasty.
This exchange happens.
I'm gonna give her a serious talking to.
I should point out that I know exactly what you plan to say to me, and precisely what responses I will give to make you feel foolish. So, why not save us both the bother and simply submit to my greater intelligence?
Ooh.
Oh, that's telling her.
All right, forget about it.
And Potato Bug actually uses AI to create their show, almost 30 years before its current implementation. The aliens from episode 1 return for an information summit with Potato Bug, but she finds them to be below her new status. Just as Potato Bug is on the brink of discovering that her intelligence is actually quite isolating, Betty the Kitchen Fairy intervenes. She decides to be dumb and happy instead of smart and smarmy.
Here's some cheese, Marcy. Oh, I am sorry that I am not the most intelligent being in existence anymore.
Unrelated, the aliens take the ghost plant back to be their supreme leader.
Where we will crown you Emperor of the Universe. What he said. Bada bing, bada boom.
Episode 10 starts with some pretty scathing commentary.
If you put that song on the air, people might wake up and realize how lousy TV is.
All right, stop watching.
It would be anarchy, chaos.
Some nefarious foreshadowing occurs.
Listen to me. There are forces at work here. Forces that you cannot possibly comprehend. In the name of all that is holy, I beg you, cut that song. Oh, is that too much already?
And we're back at PH's HQ. Bowels continue to make PH uncomfortable.
Thus I plunge into the deepest bowels of despair.
Please don't say bowels. Makes me uncomfortable.
And this episode takes a cue from Beauty and the Beast for its plot.
Okay, I'll buy some flowers.
Hi, Sal.
How much?
$1,200? I'll throw in the boat for free.
Take a hike, sister.
You will pay for this outrage. I call down a curse upon you. You will be alone, truly alone, and you'll smell funny when you're wet.
Queenie lets herself go after she learns her song has been cut from their most recent episode. In order to cheer her up, Baloney offers her something special. That's a pillow.
It's a pillow.
Hey. Baloney's generosity starts to catch up with him, and he starts seeing double. He walks in on Queenie doing... this. And soon Mr. Giblets and Potato Bug went in on the action too. PH fears the Flower Lady's curse has come true now that all his friends are seemingly missing, so he decides to play all the parts in their gladiator show. Instead of soothing the situation at hand, PH causes more discord and ultimately solves their problem after the group tears the pillow apart. He placates the TV guys, and all is well.
Give us one good reason why we shouldn't just throw you to the hounds.
Bark, bark, bark.
Tubular, baby!
I have no idea what that means, but I love it. Yes.
In the penultimate episode, an on-the-nose nutritional parody of Power Rangers gives way to PH's overwhelming amount of responsibilities running the kitchen crew.
Mr. Head, they accidentally sent a 50-foot inflatable hamster.
Oh, well then...
PH, we're out of videotape.
And the sensors have a problem with the nude scene.
And the coffee pot exploded again.
And your car is on fire.
And I'm very troubled by the conflict in the Middle East, aren't you?
I swallowed the telephone again.
Quiet!
To calm himself down, PH indulges in the fluffy Pookie Poo dance for an undetermined amount of time. The show implies months. Until Baloney gives PH the idea to get a replacement for him to take a vacation. Dr. Fruitcake invents a Robo-Tato, who will do the job perfectly because that's easier to construct than a robot that will inevitably cause mass chaos. His words, not mine.
Do you want it to go all haywire and destroy stuff?
No.
Oh, good, that's easy.
This scene is just one zinger after another.
Is my rear end really that big? Mm-hmm. You have nicer eyes, though.
PH embarks on his vacation after Baloney says something weirdly xenophobic.
Au revoir! Don't contract anything weird and foreign.
Robotato proves himself to be a preferable entity over the actual PH. The way Robotato speaks reminds me of Matthew Broderick, strangely.
Why, thank you. Now, come on. I want to cook you all a nice gourmet meal.
PH gets monstrously jealous of how efficient Robotato has become. This friend song starts treacly enough, but quickly proves itself to be worthy of the cynical nature of the show.
There's nothing like a friend, there is nothing like a friend. Someone who calls when it's least expected, someone whose secrets you know. Someone to ask if it looks infected, someone to tell you when you got PO.
Thinking he's not wanted, PH holes himself up in a seedy hotel and is visited by Betty the Kitchen Fairy, who falls into mental despair.
Don't you think it's time you went back to your friends?
No, it's not. They don't need me. They'd only be annoyed if I showed up.
You mean, like the way everyone is annoyed whenever I show up?
Yeah, kind of like that.
I'm useless.
Queenie and Baloney find PH and attempt to tell him why he's better than Robotato, but fail.
Yeah, well, so what, PH? You are our friend, and that counts for something in this mixed-up, crazy world of ours. No one can replace you.
Nice speech. You make it up yourself?
Actually, the Robotato kind of helped me with it.
You see, I was right.
The crew's dysfunction and inability to follow orders causes Robotato to self-destruct. No time to mourn, though, because there's always frozen yogurt.
Sad, he was a good guy. Just took it too far.
I resented him, it's true. But still, it's a dirty, low-down shame. So, who wants frozen yogurt?
Oh, I do.
Dr. Fruitcake also rebuilds Robotato at the end, and he ends up working as a go-go dancer, which makes that 2 episodes now where the ending involves a villainous character working at a dance club. If anyone's keeping track. In the finale, oh boy, hold on to your detachable facial features. It's a wild one. Remember that offhand comment from Nora, the TV guy, about forces beyond their control?
Listen to me. There are forces at work here. Forces that you cannot possibly comprehend.
Well, we're introduced to their boss in Shadow, who informs them to inform PH that his show is
Cancelled!
They are about as empathetic as an actual corporate entity in dismissing and uprooting PH's entire life.
You're gonna have to move out of the kitchen. Today.
Yeah, we feel awful about that.
Yeah. Hey, it's been great being your boss. Okay, go away now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
After a strange hallucination, PH breaks the news to everyone and they go their separate ways. Johnny and Mr. Whip go on to boost Johnny's music career. Dr. Fruitcake and Hammy travel interdimensionally. Welcome back to this. Candy the dog is going to return to teaching university-level physics. Don't ask. Mr. Giblets will run for political office, and maybe I'm only noticing it in this episode, but Mr. Giblets moving is accompanied by this off-putting, swishy, squashy sound. Yuck.
I'm unemployable. My particular variety of incompetence is suited only to the world of television.
Well, there's always politics.
Baloney and PH are going out on a cross-country trip, and Queenie and Potato Bug are going on the cruise ship circuit. PH reminisces a lot in the first half, prompting a quasi-clip show style episode that, as Corey has said, reads more like a random smattering of events than actual best of moments. In one of the alternate dimensions, everyone looks the same, but voices have been swapped, and everyone has grown a soul patch.
This show's gonna be great!
Sweet cheese and crackers. I am breathless with anticipation.
Hey, am I gonna sing in this show or what, boy?
The reality of everyone's situation slowly starts sinking in, and they're all pretty miserable. Except for Mr. Giblets, whose political career is flourishing.
Boy, you people will believe anything, won't you?
Yes, we will!
Unrelated, the writer wasn't informed of the cancellation and is still locked in his room. Queenie's cruise ship, called the Sinking Duchess, sinks and casts her and Potato Bug out to sea on a life raft. Baloney and PH decide to push the mysterious buttons Dr. Fruitcake installed in their car, and they end up in space. Dr. Fruitcake and Hammy end up in the worst dimension yet. Everything is huge, and the inhabitants are giant potatoes with protruding fangs. After the aliens remind PH he's irrelevant now, Baloney unknowingly presses the self-destruct button on the car. They get out of this by Baloney shouting random numbers at the countdown clock.
5, 4,
11:06, 20,
20, 19, 18,
48, a million, 17, 139.
139, 130. Oh, come on, stop that.
Potato Bug and Queenie paddle to a tropical island while PH and Baloney land back on Earth, phoning the gang and getting them back together for one last show. Meanwhile, to add to the chaos, the Ghost Plant commands the aliens to conquer Earth, because why not?
All hail Emperor Ghost Plant!
Despite wanting to put on a good show, PH wants to perform without any writing process, set building, or rehearsal, and everything goes well. all things considered. After a sketch that's reminiscent of Veterinarian's Hospital from The Muppet Show, their one audience member reacts poorly.
That's not funny. I'll have you know that dandruff, stinking dandruff, killed my paw! Daddy!
Now, because they're the only ones smart enough to see above the donkey Waddlefoot in league with the aliens conspiracy, Dr. Fruitcake seamlessly duplicates the car so all 8 can go into space. And while in space, I'm realizing this is the only episode where the effects fill the entire screen. Brava. The space battle commences with all the typical lamp shading we've come to expect. The face-off between the aliens and our heroes resolves with Betty the Kitchen Fairy returning and releasing Blostergath the Destroyer from his microwave prison. The Armada is chased off, and PH puts 2 and 2 together.
Oh, but first there's one little detail I have to take care of.
The evil corporate overlord is actually an alien.
You, sir, are one of the fiendish alien overlords!
Advance! I've been found out! Curse you, Mr. Potato Head! You have foiled our plan to conquer your insignificant planet!
Well, if it's so insignificant, why do you want to conquer it?
That's a really good point. I guess you saved us a lot of trouble. Thanks, buddy! Catch you on the flip side.
Without sinister demands looming over them, PH is free to do whatever he wants with his show, and is now dedicated to providing quality programming to his viewers.
What should the episode next week be about,
Ah, who cares? People will watch anything.
You're right.
Truth be told, there's not a lot of literature about this show online, yet I was half expecting IMDb to have something substantial. They did not. 3 facts, 2 of them redundant. Cancelled due to raw Titanic joke? Well, I mean, there's this.
Hey, what ship are we on? The Golden Mermaid? The Ocean Goddess?
The Sinking Duchess.
There's something vaguely unsettling about that name, but can't seem to put my finger on it.
Oh, wait. Okay, an FAQ here. Are the final 2 episodes of the series a wider commentary on the origins of the universe? Lofty. Someone answered, Carl Sagan was rumored to have an interest in utilizing children's television shows to help foster greater scientific awareness of the cosmos, but no definitive proof on his involvement with this particular show has been proven to be from a reliable source. While possible, it is unlikely these episodes represent anything more than a man like Potato having wonderful adventures. And that's it. All 13 episodes. Every single wacky adventure has been accounted for. And when we return, we'll kind of unpack it all. See you there.
Baby, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a show so great it'll put hair on your chest. Ooh, it'll put hair on every chest in the world. Enough hair to bring joy and peace to everyone.
I have no idea what that means, but I love
it. Listen up, party people. I know we're all happy to be together again.
Now that we've gone through every single episode of the Mr. Potato Head show, what does it all mean? What is the point of this whole exercise? What the Mr. Potato Head show does well is play with audience expectations. As a first-time viewer, it was almost thrilling to see what kind of issue or plot they would tackle next. Well, as thrilling as a talking potato show aimed at children can be. Thoroughly, the show talks and acts like a program that's been going on for seasons instead of just being in its freshman effort.
And you'll be happy as 12 clams, right? Right? Who's your pal?
You know, you really shouldn't drink grape juice that's been sitting out in the sun.
Even though it comes off as self-aware, it never reads like the writers are ashamed of their plots and characters. They read as scripts that were probably written independently from the Potato Head brand and retrofitted to put those characters in. You could actually compare the Mr. Potato Head show to the Oakley and Weinstein tenure of The Simpsons. By the 7th season, the characters were settled into their roles, actively commenting on structure and metatextually breaking down their typical themes and narratives.
Normally, your father's crackpot schemes fizzle out as soon as he finds something good on TV. But this season...
Self-aware humor abounds, and a cynical 90s attitude plays to refreshingly subversive effect. The Mr. Potato Head show does something similar, but the impact is dwarfed by the conceit of the project. The only character to exist prior is PH himself, while the rest are creations for the show, and from what I could find, exist only in this iteration of the IP. The show relies on the fact a viewer, children, have been around the block long enough to be one step ahead of the plot, always, yet invested enough to find the transgressive acts amusing, and for a kid's show, it definitely is. The irony-poisoned media landscape of the 90s has done a lot of good to the world of comedy, yet it's easy to compare two shows and see how one actively lampoons standard tropes, and another simply imitates that lampooning. As an example, the Mr. Potato Head show looks to basic sitcom plots to start off the episodes, and usually see that plot through to its logical conclusion, without many third-act swerves into nonsense territory. The show isn't comfortable enough, or maybe wasn't allowed, to completely say screw the audience and take the show in a new, interesting direction. Instead, we're given undercuts to the morals presented at each episode's conclusion.
So, who wants frozen yogurt?
Oh, I do.
As a side note, I have never seen a kids' TV show so jadedly, so passively reject the lesson that it wants to teach, so callously swipe left on the correct thing to do. Personally, I find this great, and honestly surprising, given how sincere children's media is in 2023. If the Mr. Potato Head show had come out now instead of the 90s, it probably would have caught on. I can see a lot of stoners enjoying this one, and it's just edgy enough for parents to watch too.
But it isn't fun to share. It's fun to clutch things greedily to your bosom.
Please don't say bosom. Makes me uncomfortable.
The Mr. Potato Head show looks to many different sources for its goulash of a presentation. There's The Simpsons in there, as mentioned, but also an element of The Muppets and Animaniacs. But this show is not hinged on the Potato Head brand. The mere fact PH is the mascot of the series is entirely inconsequential. None of the stories depend on his being a sentient potato, and could be done in any wacky setting with any wacky characters. PH's personality of grumpy, yet well-meaning head of a production hadn't been done with a character before, and hasn't been done since. On average, Mr. Potato Head skews a line that is softer and more fatherly than this incarnation. Here, he actively talks down to children, and his morality is always in question.
Augustus, if you ever make a crack about my weight again, I will personally come to any town, Bolivia, and give you a wedgie of epic proportions! Ta-ta!
It's an interesting offbeat take to be sure, but not consistent with the loose branding of the toy. The takedowns and jabs at corrupt politicians and television executives are cutting, but they don't say much about the brand itself. If the show had been more about PH's popularity as a talking potato, as the pilot suggests that he is, and the various marketable personas and accessories he tries on with each genre of show they tackle, then maybe I could see how the commentary on commercialism would have a point. Be the point. But maybe the fact of being a down-on-his-luck producer fighting for relevancy in a TV season filled with dumber, more accessible shows was a whole point, and we were too obtuse to even notice.
Well, I should probably get back to money. I mean work.
The Mr. Potato Head show was able to take its title character and bend him to fit into a premise, change his persona, if you will, to align with the goals of a creator's vision. This is paralleled by the consolidation and rebranding by Hasbro into the all-encompassing Potato Head brand. Does the Potato Head brand really stand tall as a property whose defining traits are so rigid it can't be mashed into something else? This humble viewer says no. Yet the flexibility of the Potato Heads gives it more staying power, more commercial value, more longevity, all at the expense of a meaningful character. You put things in to Mr. Potato Head. You don't get much out of him. He's a truly blank slate you can do anything with, and sometimes that bargain pays off, but not here. Yet not through the fault of its creators.
Admittedly, I was struggling to find a way to fit this part into the video. I was well into editing when I decided to do something that I had never done before for a project like this. Because the show is so obscure, because there are so many unknowns, I decided that going to a source was necessary. I needed to get a first-hand account on what being in the show was like. So, I contacted one of the actors.
I have no idea what that means, but I love it.
Lisa Kaplan is best known for her roles on Dave the Barbarian and The Weekenders as Tito's mom. While she has done live-action roles, such as here as Nora, she is more prolific as a voiceover artist. I got in contact with her late into this video's production, but the amount of insight she had on the show and the resources she had could not go unincluded. I got permission to share her stories, as well as the behind-the-scenes pictures you've seen and will see. She has fond memories of doing the show, claiming she had trouble not laughing at the puppet performers, but not feeling it was difficult to act with them due to their expressiveness. Her husband, at the time, was series co-creator and writer Doug Langdale, so she was able to give special insight as to the demise of the show. As it goes, she states, Hasbro did not like the irreverent Mr. P. Jay Leno wanted to interview Mr. P, the puppeteer Kevin, but Hasbro said they wanted to see all the questions in advance, which everyone thought was absolutely ridiculous. The Leno people would not do that, so there was one opportunity that was completely blown. Then Hasbro started to separate itself from the entire production, so then the network lost steam as well, so it was very sad and a complete waste. The final edits are so frenetic. When we all saw it, we were so discouraged. Everyone worked so hard on it. It was an amazing time in my life. When asked if the initial 13 were the only scripts written, she pretty much confirmed this as true. Nope, she said, it did not get a pickup. We were all hoping. Such is showbiz. The network, Fox, and Hasbro did not promote nor agree, so sadly, nothing happened. She also cited the show's continual shifting in the schedule, so viewers could never find it. Kaplan was unaware of the show's status as lost media for a time, so I was able to fill her in on that part of the show's history, and she was excited to learn about its somewhat cult impact and was overall lovely to talk with. After this conversation with Kaplan, I decided the show needed some kind of justice, some thoughtful time to shine, not only to laud her work, but the work of everyone involved in the production. A show with such a unique premise brought down by corporate indifference, despite the talent in front of and behind the camera, unfortunately happens all too often. A huge thank you to Lisa, whose contributions to this project have made it shine all the brighter.
That was simply marvelous.
As silly as the show is, it was too ahead of its time, too eager to do what shows had been running for years could do. Thankfully, we can sit and watch it and make an internet about it because we're bored enough with the monotony of real life that this, deconstructing a puppet show, feels like your true calling. Might have cut too deep there. This issue befalls a lot of toy properties, but the silent cynicism of the Mr. Potato Head show at least demonstrates some thought went behind the thing. At least the writers wanted to give the character an epic quest full of quips and peril and perilous quips. And to think, this whole thing wouldn't have happened if I wasn't curious about a potato's gender. But setup and payoff is for dorks. Here's Potato Bug.
Dance break! Boogie, boogie, boogie.